Okay, so ellipses, day 12, or unit 12, day 3. So ellipses are kind of like circles. They're just a little bit different. So an ellipse is a set of all points in a plane whose sum is the distance from P to two fixed points, F1 and F2, is a given sum K, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't mean a whole lot to you. But the point on the focal axis midway between the foci is the center. So the center is kind of just the same as like the center in a circle. It's just the midpoint between the foci and between the endpoints, whatever. The endpoints of the minor axis of an ellipse are the co-vertices. And then plural of focus is a fixed point equidistant from the center and located on the focal axis. That's the foci. The endpoints of the major axis are the vertices. The segment that contains the foci on the ellipse and has endpoints on the ellipse is the major axis. And the segment that is perpendicular to the major axis is the minor axis. Okay, so you can take, these are what ellipses are. So they're just like stretched circles or like compressed circles. And you can use the Pythagorean theorem here to find certain things, except for we've just switched our C and our A. Now our C is our A value and whatever. Okay, we can get into that a little bit more later, but you basically use the Pythagorean theorem to find the C value. Okay, so with the equations, when the ellipse is at the center, it's x squared over a squared plus y squared over b squared equals 1. It always has to equal 1. Always equals 1. And then the other thing, for a squared and b squared, a squared, I don't know how to write this. Let's see, let's write it right here. A squared is always the bigger number. So a squared could be under y. It could also be under x. It's just the bigger number. So a is always the bigger number, which means b squared is the smaller number. Okay, and the major axis, beep. Okay, the major axis is always whatever, so if it's x squared over the bigger number, that's the major axis. If it's y squared over the bigger number, y-axis is the major axis. Okay, the foci are your C values. So foci are C values. Vertices, these are on your major axis. That's your A value. Co-vertices are your B values. Then the Pythagorean relation is right there, and that's how you find the foci. Okay, and the only difference between these right here are what the major axis is. Okay, let's do some examples. And we're just doing these examples with the center at 0 right now. So we have this ellipse, x squared over 25 plus y squared over 16 equals 1. Well, my major axis here is the x-axis because 25 is greater than 16 and 25 is underneath the x. So my major axis is the x-axis. Okay, my center, oh wait, we're not going to find our center yet. Let's find our a and our b. So a squared is always the bigger number. So a squared equals 25, which means a equals 5. B squared equals 16, which means b equals 4. So there's 4. And then let's find c. So c squared equals a squared minus b squared. And that's the case for all ellipses. It's a squared minus b squared equals c squared. So that's going to be 25 minus 16, which means c squared equals 9, which means c equals 3. So c equals 3. Now my center here is 0, 0, because there's no pluses or minuses in the tops. There's no pluses or minuses with the x's. The only time the center won't be at 0, 0 is if you had an equation that looked like this. So say you had like x minus 2 squared over 25 plus y plus 1 squared over 16 equals 1. Oh, dang it. That went away. But that would be your center would change. And we'll get into that more in class. Okay. Now, my major vertices here I'm going to start by graphing my point at 0, 0, my center. I know that my major axis is the x-axis, and my a value is 5. So I'm going to go out 5 from that point, draw that point, out 5, draw that point. So my major vertices there are 5, 0, and negative 5, 0. Now my co-vertices, that's where you use your b value. And I already went out on the x-axis, so now I'm going to go out on the y-axis. I'm going to go up 4, and I'm going to go down 4. So my co-vertices are 0, 4, and 0, negative 4. Okay? Now my foci, the foci are always on the major axis. Always on major axis. Okay? Always, every single time. So if my foci, if my C value is 3, I'm going to go out 3 from my center. So I'm going to go out 3 right there and out 3 right there. So my foci are 3, 0, and negative 3, 0. Then we can just draw that ellipse. Okay? Let's do another one. So we need to find the equation in standard form of an ellipse centered at the origin with a vertex of 0, 5 and a co-vertex of 2, 0. Well, let's start with what we know. We know the center is at 0, 0. We know one of the major vertexes is 0, 5, which also means we have a major vertex at 0, negative 5, because you have to go in both directions. And we know one of my minor vertices is 2, 0, sorry, which means another one would be negative 2, 0, because you have to go in both directions. Okay? My major axis is the y-axis here because of where my major vertices are. 0, 5, 5 is greater than 2, and 5, that's in the y position, so that's going to go up 5 and down 5. Whereas for my minor vertices, that's going to go right 2 and left 2, which is not as big as the 5s. Okay. So my a value is 5 because a is always the bigger one. My b value is 2. And let's find our c value. Maybe. Yep. So c squared equals 5 squared minus 2 squared, which means c squared equals 25 minus 4, which means c squared equals 21. So c equals the square root of 21, which is approximately 4.6. So c equals 4.6. That's just what we're going to say. So that's going to be 0, 4.6, and 0, negative 4.6, because you go in the direction of your major vertices. Okay, so let's graph all this now. So we have a center at 0, 0. We have our major vertice at 0, 5, and 0, negative 5. Our minor vertices at 2, 0, and negative 2, 0. And then our foci at 0, 4.6, and 0, negative 4.6. There is that ellipse. And for this equation, it's going to be y squared over 5 squared, because y is our major axis, plus x squared over 2 squared equals 1, which is y squared over 25 plus x squared over 4 equals 1. And it is always equal to 1. If it's not equal to 1, you have to change the equation until it is equal to 1, and then you can go figure it out. Okay? Let's do this last one. So we have 4x squared plus 25y squared equals 100. Well, like I just said, this always has to be equal to 1. So I'm going to divide 100 by 100 because that will give me 1. Whatever you do to one side of the equation, you have to do to the other. So I'm going to divide everything by 100. And 4 divided by 100 reduces to 1/25. So that's going to be x squared over 25. 25 over 100 reduces to 1/4. So that's going to be y squared over 4. And then 100 divided by 100 is just 1. Okay, so my major axis here is the x-axis. Now my a squared equals 5, which means a equals 5. So my major vertices are 5, 0, and negative 5, 0. And that was x because it was the major axis. Okay, my minor vertices are b squared equals 4, so b equals 2. So that's going to be 0, 2, and 0, negative 2. And then let's find our foci. So that c squared equals 25 minus 4 because it's c squared equals a squared minus b squared every single time, which means c squared equals 21. So c equals the square root of 21, which is approximately 4.6. So that's going to be 4.60 and negative 4.60. And then let's just graph everything we have. So the center is at the origin. I'm going to go out 5 for my major axis, up 2 and down 2 for my minor axis. And then my foci are negative 4.6 and positive 4.6. Then we can draw that ellipse right there. Okay? Let's do these last ones. So we have to write an equation for an ellipse in standard form whose center is at the origin. And then for A, the vertex is negative 4, 0, and the co-vertex is 0, 3. So if the major vertex is negative 4, 0, we also have another point at 4, 0, which means the major axis is the x-axis because that's in the x coordinate right there. And A equals 4, which means a squared equals 16. Okay, and then for the minor vertex, that's 0, 3, which means we also have one at 0, negative 3, which means b equals 3 and b squared equals 9. My equation here is going to be x squared over 16 because x is your major axis, plus y squared over 9, and that equals 1. Okay? For this last one, we have a equals 3, which means a squared equals 9. B equals 2, which means b squared equals 4. And it has a width of 4. This is the x-axis because width is right and left. That's the x-axis. That is less than 9, so that means that the x-axis is my minor axis, and the y-axis is my major axis. So this is going to be y squared over 9 plus x squared over 4 equals 1. Okay? We're going to save the rest for class because I think it'll help you more if I'm actually there teaching you this. So please take the quiz, and I will see you guys tomorrow.